Carlos Nelson with What's Up Kansas City, and we have one of our state representatives on the show today, Miss Ashley Bland. How you doing today, Ashley?
I'm well. How are you, sir?
Doing just fine. You come from a long line of activists, people in your family have been involved in politics. I've been here about 30 years, so they was involved when I came. So
yes, sir.
You come from a long line, and I would say thoroughbreds.
We're just public servants, just trying to serve the public.
Hold it. Everybody, you can do public service, but everybody can't do it thoroughly and get things done, create coalitions, and rise from a private to a general. I watched people in your family do that. And I see you're following in the footsteps. It's not what your country or your city can do for you, it's what you can do for your city. That's how I'm looking at you.
Always.
So can you tell for our audience that don't know a whole lot about you, give them a rundown, a history, your Kansas City history. Let's go from elementary school on to where you're at right now. Quick rundown.
Okay. Well, hello, Kansas City. My name is State Representative Ashley Bland Manlove. I am born and raised here in Kansas City. Went to school at E.F. Sweeney on the Plaza, one of the magnets back in the day. And then went to St. Paul's on the Plaza on Main Street. Then went to St. Teresa's and Lincoln for high school, graduated from St. Teresa's. Then left and went to Philander Smith in Little Rock, Arkansas, my HBC. Did not graduate, but came back home and started working in accounting under Brian Welch, CPA in town, very good man. And then I joined the military and joined the Missouri Army National Guard. So this is my second time serving the great state of Missouri, and served as an intelligence analyst and held a top secret clearance. Did that for my 7 years. So got sworn in under the great President Barack Obama. And when the orange man got sworn in, I left. My contract was up and I would not serve him. So kind of changed courses. And through this whole time, I have been, as he said, my grandmother is the late Representative and Senator Mary Groves Bland. And so under her watchful eye, I have been really knocking doors and engaged in the voting process since I was about 12, actively being by myself, working on it. But born and raised to be a servant. My father's whole side is military. One of my great uncles was the first Black captain in the Marines. I've got several purple hearts on my father's side. Rest in peace to my uncle who just passed away. He was one of them. And then my mother's whole side, the Blands and the Groves, they're all in non-for-profits and education. You know, my mother ran the Lupus Foundation, Kansas City chapter. My mother ran the Arthritis Foundation. My mother, Arletha Bland Manlove. Lupus Foundation.
My sister-in-law has lupus. That's why.
A lot of Black women do. It's prevalent in the Black community, and we don't know that. We're even now there's still a lot of misdiagnosis. But so my mother, yes, ran the Lupus Foundation. She ran the Arthritis Foundation. She worked for the Green Impact Zone. My aunt was a teacher for like 40 years. And then my Uncle Craig, who also served in the House and was also a president of Freedom Incorporated, was a hardworking union man for 30, 40 years. So, and of course, my Uncle Rodney, who was also a backbone in Freedom Incorporated.
I think I told you, me and Rodney used to pile around when we was younger. Him, myself, David Haley, and we all came up and got our bones and made our bones together.
Well, they mentored you guys through this process and really made sure that you were integrated into the community and knew your community, and they tried to do the same for me.
That's the key. What you just said, know your community.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. It was easy. If I wanted to contact somebody in my community, it was easy for me to call somebody or know somebody to give me a direct telephone number, just how I got in contact.
Especially as small as Kansas City is. Especially as small as Kansas City is. It's definitely 2 degrees of separation.
Yeah. So now tell our audience a little bit about what your platform is down there in Jeff City, and what are the things that you'd like to see happen on your watch?
Okay. Well, I have 4 kind of issues that I really focus on. The first one is voters' rights and protecting those, as we see that they are constantly under assault, and criminal justice reform, but actually from a voting perspective and equity in that. I've also picked up police reform, but those are kind of 2 separate issues.
We're going to talk about that police situation also.
and I'd love to talk about. There's great things to educate people on. I also care about education, but from a holistic perspective. So I want to make sure like our youth are getting the internships that they need to be successful. Our kids, it's great to work a summer job, but it's even better to have a summer internship that moves you forward in your education and in your
studies. Can I interrupt you for a second?
Yes, sir.
We talked off camera about that for about 10 minutes, these internships. And I think I told you how I had interns out of all the local colleges and whatever. I don't really think our kids really, the era we living in, I don't think they really see what's really important. And when I've dealt with some of these kids that have had degrees and media and what have you, they come out, they really don't know nothing. They know something on the book, but practicality. And then when you're trying to tell them, hey, listen, you need to do this internship, because when you go for that job, people are going to hire people that they can actually see a portfolio of work. And versus, I got a degree, but look, I've done 30 interviews. I've done 30 podcasts. I've done this. I've met this one. You can look at this. That is going to hold you in good stead.
Well, yeah, then there's kind of 2 issues right there. Number one, we get told you have to go to college to be successful. And then once you graduate from college, you're $200,000 in debt and nobody will hire you because you don't have any experience.
Because you've been looking at too much TV. To me, you've been believing.
No, I think that not that they're looking at too much TV, but I think that, of course, there has been a breakdown in the processing of responsibility, right? So, they might have been the first college grad out of their family. That's still very prevalent. So their parents might not have known that they needed to have internships because they didn't have any and their parents didn't, right? So there's a lot, and that goes back to that systemic racism and all kinds of, right. It's all cyclical, right? And it's all connected. And then yes, kids are raised, or kids are not raised, and they're independently raising themselves earlier. So therefore, they think, or it might be harder for the youth to process receiving information because they've been protecting themselves for so long, right?
This is how I see it. When I said TV, I wasn't just talking about TV. I was saying they've been listening to too much of the hype. I talked to you about 99 and 900% of the majority community owning the air with all forms of communication. You're right. Only a product of your environment. And what the environment puts out is Nike, Adidas, diamond rings, Coach bags, this and that. And what the
That
environment
horrible
puts out.
song out by Nicki and Megan right now that
Right.
all the little 6-year-olds are singing. Just
It
horrible.
is. I'm not even familiar with that.
Don't worry about it.
All right, but my era, you went to the store, you wanted something, you put it in the layaway, and you paid on it, and you paid on it, and then you got it out. Over the last 2, maybe even 3 decades, well, 2 decades for sure, I got to have it right now.
Instant gratification.
It's a New York minute, and
instant gratification.
And when you're consuming all of the information that the major controllers of the planet is putting out, it's all materialistic and it's all right now. It's not, if I can't eat at the table right now, I'm not worried about what's going to be on the menu for next week.
Yeah.
And so,
unfortunately, Americans are very selfish right now, hence our low voter turnouts. Kansas City's voter turnout is only 12%, and we happen to be up at 20% for this last election that just happened in August. But that's because people don't know that it's bigger than them. They think, oh, the system doesn't work for me. And really, you have to have enough of us we have to play the game to beat the game.
You got to be in the game. It's like the lottery. You can't win the lottery if you don't play.
You don't buy a ticket.
Yeah. So so now I want to talk to you about, because with the city politicians that I've been talking to, the mayor and everybody, the police.
Okay.
How do you see that? The Kansas City community wants to have more control over the police force. How do you? But the police are controlled by the state. How do you see that? And could you give me some insight with some of your colleagues, if you've had that conversation, what some of your colleagues are saying down at the state?
Well, I mean, and that's the key part that a lot of Kansas Cityans are missing. The city does not run our police force as every other municipality in the country. Kansas City is the only one left, to my knowledge. There might be one more, because there's always like one more, but Kansas City is the only one left where we do not control our police department. What is this? Why do we not control our police department? It's from the Pendergast days. It's from the mafia days. Everybody knows Kansas City was a big mafia town. Kansas City did not have prohibition because of the mafia and 18th and Vine. So we're a big mafia town. Mafia had inundated the police department. And so then the state came and took over when they were getting rid of the mob. But that was in the 30s. This is now 2020. We do not have our police department left or yet. St. Louis just got their police department back within the last 4 to 5 years. Theirs was taken away, same principle. And they had to use a ballot initiative to get theirs back because the legislator, with a Republican majority, would not release that back to the citizens of St. Louis.
How do you see the atmosphere is for Kansas City? Two-pronged questions. How do you see that with Kansas City, and how do you survive with a Republican legislature? How do you get anything really done? And I, like I said, I don't follow what's going on down in Jeff City, but from a national point of view, when you look at the Republican Party in general, it seems like they have not been willing to cooperate on too much of anything.
Oh, they're not there. It's a very tumultuous situation. So, okay. First question, the police. Okay. What is it looking like? I'm not getting a good read. The FOP still wants to keep control, because if it was brought down to Kansas City, they wouldn't have the control that they would because of the demographics of Kansas City.
FOP people, the Fraternal Order of Police?
Fraternal Order of Police, which is the police union.
Oversight, yeah.
Anyway, so do I see? I know I'm filing legislation to get to repeal the statute that did that put the cities.
Have you had any conversation with the mayor by any chance?
I have not personally had conversations with him. I know that he is for releasing the city back to or the police department back to the city. And here's why that's pivotal. There were a lot of people saying, fire Chief Smith. My question was, whom is going to do that? Quentin cannot fire Chief Smith. And if we fire Chief Smith and don't change the policies, the new chief is going to follow the same policies that Rick was doing. So do I believe that the Republicans will let us do it? No. How do I get anything done? I either give it to a Republican or do some negotiating behind the doors, or try and leverage the voting bloc of the Black Caucus, because sometimes we have different priorities than the Democrat caucus.
Let's talk about that. We're going, you lead me right on in. The Black Caucus, what was your position with the Black Caucus office-wise?
So for my freshman term, I was elected vice chair of the Black Caucus. And when session comes back or starts back up, I'll be running as chair. I'll be running for chair.
And what's the agenda with the Black Caucus, Missouri Black Caucus?
So it, I'll say, unfortunately, over the past couple of years has kind of dwindled. We've been fighting so many other fights. I think it just kind of got lost in the shuffle. And a lot of our prominent, kind of defenders of the Black Caucus. The Black Caucus was really, a big thing back when my grandmother was around.
Right.
Paula Carter.
We had power.
Phil Curls, those days. And that's when I grew up and learned about the Black Caucus. There was a program that they did every summer. There was the retreat down at Tantera.
I still got my book bags that they.
Okay, so there was the retreat down at Tantera every year, and then there was a youth conference that they did every year where youth got to learn the process of bureaucracy and learn how to research a bill, write a bill, go through a hearing, and debate it on the floor. The conference, and that was also done through a non-for-profit, basically. So there was the Black Caucus Foundation, and then there was the Black Caucus. So the Black Caucus, inside the Capitol, our agenda is making sure that that the Black agenda is recognized and given forethought. Also, we work a lot with the judiciary branch and making sure that there's equity within our judges and prosecutors.
How do you see that also? Do you think there's equity, or where do you rate that? There
is movement in a positive direction. There's movement in a positive direction.
Well, how are you working with your colleagues?
We now have the second Black Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, Judge Draper. So he's out of St. Louis, but we do now have a Black Chief Supreme Court Justice.
That's where I was going, not on the justice, but how are you working with your colleagues out of St. Louis? And I think it was the last 2 weeks, maybe the month, I don't know. But they was able to oust Clay. And how damaging do you think that is to the coalition of Black elected officials down there at the state?
Okay, sorry, that's a couple of questions. St. Louis. So myself, specifically Representative Lakeisha Bosley, out of St. Louis, specifically Representative Wiley Price. Both of those young people are out of St. Louis City, and the three of us are really good friends. And we work really hard to make.
They got the squad down in D.C. I'm naming y'all the crew.
That's fine. We'll be that. But we work really hard to make sure that that kind of I-70 divide is gone. There's not enough of us here to be separated like that. Black folks in Kansas City can't say, I don't mess with Black folks in St. Louis, or I don't go to St. Louis. We have to change that narrative. And I unfortunately played into that narrative. I was like, I hate St. Louis. I'm never going back to St. Louis. But once I became elected and got to actually explore St. Louis and got to see some of the similarities between our city, Swope Park and
their park, right?
Their park. They've got the Muni and Starlight and the zoo, and the way it's all set up is very, very similar. And they even try to have barbecue over there. It's horrible, but it's really cute. They really try.
I'm with you. Well, so when I was younger, because when I was in the 5th grade, I lived in St. Louis at 1940 Arlington, went to Catholic school and all of that. And I'm from New York, I think I told you. So any kind of barbecue tastes good. And so I was used to getting St. Louis barbecue, but as I got older, I didn't like potato salad on my sandwiches and what have you.
They say we're gonna get some barbecue. I'll be like, where?
St. Louis barbecue got the best barbecue on the planet, as far as I'm concerned.
Point hands down. So Lacey Clay, it's kind of a complicated situation. The Clays have about a 50-year legacy of amazing legislation that they have passed. So I am sad to see them go.
That's 50 years of connections also.
People don't understand the resources that you gain and that you can then give back to your community. That's why term limits are stupid. We have term limits. They're called elections. Anyway, so that is a heartbreak for me. And the Bland family and the
who's going to wind up taking the seat, or do you know?
I don't know. I mean, I think Corey has a Republican contender, so I think she still has a general. It'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. I pray that stays a Democrat seat. That's the part that I care about. And I think that it's unfortunate that the Clay camp didn't make their successor. I'm sure they were training somebody. It had to be. And it's unfortunate that they didn't, kind of let that be known. And then Bernie Sanders kind of changed the game in that race.
He turned the apple cart upside down.
And we have to really figure out, are we going to split into a 3-party? So we're progressives, Democrats, and Republicans, or whether progressives and Democrats are really going to work together. And then what that actually looks like. Progressives kind of want to either burn it all down and start all over. And, sometimes that's not always.
Sharp?
Mark Sharp? Representative Mark Sharp. Yes, right. I do.
Right.
Not
well, let me tell you
Sheriff
this.
Mark Sharp.
Let me tell you this, Rep. Like when I was interviewing Kevin O'Neill, he's city councilman. I'll be telling them all, I don't care nothing about your titles. Your name was Kevin before you was the city council person. What I care about is, what are you doing for my community, that Black community for the most part, and then tell me what you're doing for the overall Kansas City community, because our house is on fire and everybody's like, well, all lives matter and all this. No, it ain't matter, but we got bullets in us. We need to get to the hospital, and y'all need to understand.
African Americans are supposed to love America, but then America isn't required to love us back equitably. And that is
key word.
Has shown.
Hey, what's that key word again?
Equitably. and we see the inequities.
Think it's so hard for the majority community to see the plight that we deal with through white supremacy, racism, economics, housing, health, redlining, the whole thing. How do you, or do you get any feedback on that? Because
yeah, I'll get a lot of feedback. A lot of it is misinformation from the media, and the other half is selfishness and people living in their own bubbles. It doesn't affect me until I'm affected by it.
That's like that police brutality.
I'll give you a better example. Let's take it from a controversial police brutality, because there's back the blue and not. So let's go even further back. The crack pandemic.
All right, I like that. I see where you're going.
So let's go there. And through circumstances not of our own doing, a toxin was put into our community. We got on 4 planes. We didn't bring crack here. Somebody brought that to us, and it took fire because of all the other desperate situations that were going on. So it was an easy fix to numb the pain. And so people were dying in mass numbers. People going to jail in mass numbers, and they jailed them, or they weren't treated properly. Now, fast forward 2018, we have the opioid epidemic. And now there's, oh, this is a mental health issue, and oh, we can't send them to jail, and oh, we have to rehab them. Well, why did we not treat it that same way during the crack epidemic? Oh, because it was the Black and brown communities, and not white women and white children were not being affected by the crack epidemic. Outside of
the crack, the heroin, and all of that. But soon as it becomes a health, with the white people, it's a health problem. With us, it was criminality.
Exactly.
And me personally, it's like the majority of the community that I know, I've got good white friends. Shit, I'm not disliked because I don't have no white people in my family.
Family, right?
Yeah, right. But it's like they know. They just don't want to admit. And I tell most white people, I don't blame you for what happened, but I blame you for not trying to correct the situation of
I don't need a Black savior.
inequity.
I don't need a white savior. I need a white ally to use their resources.
All right, there we go.
All right,
hey, is there anything in closing that you would like to say to our audience?
Fill out your census. I don't want to hear any of these conspiracy theories about the government's tracking me. Yeah, we need to know how many people are in this country so that we can send down the funding to the schools. Feds are the only people who can't discriminate by race. And that's why they go by population. So I don't care if your baby daddy is sleeping on the couch and you're in Section 8 housing. I don't care if you're an illegal. I don't care. Fill out the census so we can take care of your children. And that's get out and vote November 4th. Doesn't matter if you're registered if you don't show up.
How can they contact you?
You can find me on all of the social media platforms. I have a representative page and I have a campaign page on Facebook. I have an Instagram page. All of them are either Manlove for Missouri or Representative Ashley Bland Manlove. Also, you can email me, and I'll say this slowly. It's Ashley, ASHLEY, Bland Manlove, all one word, BLANDMANLOVE. So ashley.blandmanlove@house.mo.gov.
Excellent. Hey, Ashley, it's a pleasure having you on. And I'm looking forward to working with you in 221.
Let's make the community great, man.
And as we always say in closing on all our shows, when you invest in your community, you're really just investing in yourself.
Amen.
Good night.
The program is brought to you by the Kansas City Business Association.